and welcome to Women of Influence podcast. Hi, I'm Jaylen with J Group Real Estate Team.
The Great American Speak Off.
One of my favorites.
Hey, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, whatever time it is when you're listening in on this podcast. Welcome to another Women of Influence broadcast. Today, I have with me the fabulous and wonderful Margaret Cascio. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Cascio, but that's close.
Cascio. That reminds me of something in the 80s. I can't quite place it. I'm probably dating myself right now.
The watch. Yeah.
Most is that what it is?
The watch. Yeah. Different spelling, but that's usually what people say.
Awesome. I love it. Well, you are fantastic. So, Margaret, welcome to the show. To our audience, Margaret brings over 20 years of experience leading teams in sales, marketing, and client success. Now she's all about helping businesses build high-performing teams and create long-term growth strategies. We're going to dive into everything from hiring the right people to getting sales teams off to a strong start. Margaret, welcome. So glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Jaylen. I'm excited to be here. And I love your intro. Awesome. Great energy.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll have to say thank you to Chris. She's amazing with my social media and graphics things. So, Margaret, what I have to ask you, I know a little bit about you based on the bio that you sent. And also there's a little bit of background. You work with my husband, actually. You guys are kind of on the same team with the high ticket team. So
yes.
There's a little bit there, but what inspired you to leave your successful corporate career and focus on launching and transforming businesses?
Yeah, it kind of comes, and probably all of us who've been doing our careers for a long time get asked by your clients and your friends who have businesses and things like that. Well, how are you doing that? And what are you doing to get that result? And, all of that kind of stuff. So I had an opportunity with my last corporate career. It was an international position, and I needed to be more based in the States. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go help my friends do more of what I absolutely love. I really love building really excited, fantastic teams that work together and produce beyond expectations and have a really good time with it. So that's what really drives me. And I love to be able to help others do that. And sometimes that's hard for other people to do. So, lean on your strengths, right? So that's why I'm here.
Just listening to you talk about all of that, my mind is going oh my gosh, how do you even do all of that? I have to imagine sometimes it's like herding cats, right?
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with salespeople, right? We were just talking in our meeting this morning. We were talking about shiny bunnies and who's doing that, and it's well, how are you going to focus this week? And so it's about kind of getting those cats to focus on what's in front of you instead of those shiny bunnies that are all over the place. It can always distract you.
Got it. So without getting too much in the weeds here, how do you go about finding these people that end up, making a great team for somebody, for a particular company?
It's really interesting. I think hiring specifically has really changed in probably the past 4 or 5 years dramatically. I'm seeing that. A lot of companies really still focus on putting past sales experience as kind of their number one drivers as to who they choose. But what I've really been finding is that that mindset and that ability to shift and change is a lot more important than what your past experience is. Kind
Interesting.
of looking for like resilience. How are they bouncing back from rejection? What are they doing for self-motivation? Are they driven by incentives and compensation, or are they driven by having a leader that's really interested in them and how to their goals and how to help them achieve that? My favorite with salespeople is really learning about their curiosity level. Like, do they
Mm,
ask questions? Do they show that learning mindset? Do they really want to know and understand what the customer needs and wants, and not just shove down their throat, what you're trying to sell? And probably most importantly, is, are they coachable?
mm,
And especially when you look at experience, people that have been doing it for a long time think they know a lot, and they do, but there's the landscape has shifted. So are they going to be coachable? Are they going to be able to learn new things? And how do you decipher and know that in the hiring process is really, really kind of important.
yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is it's not necessarily about the experience you've had. Like you could have a resume in front of you and somebody's had like 30 years of experience, but if they're not
Yeah.
coachable, if they don't have that resilience, and they might not be a good fit for the team that you're trying to build, right?
Yeah.
So, I know you touched on briefly that it's, the interviewing process is different. Like, I haven't personally gone on an interview in probably 30 years. And I remember back then, it was actually taking my physical resume on the physical piece of paper and handing it to somebody and like waiting for that phone call. So, what does the interview process look like now?
Yeah. I'm working with your husband. We're on the same team, and I really love the platform that has been developed. It's really accepting and putting into place this way to kind of address and be able to learn more about those things that I had talked about before, and in the interview process. So, being able to have a more personalized approach. So, now we don't take the piece of paper and hand it to somebody anymore. We're doing most of it kind of like how we're doing it right now. It's mostly electronic, and we're submitting resumes, via sometimes applicant tracking systems, and having conversations. But when you're trying to get those really high quality people, we need to almost gamify it a little bit more now, and having the ability to select the right type of people. So you've got the opportunity with a lot of things like LinkedIn sales, or their hiring platform, and being able to weed out kind of some of those people that aren't really a good fit as far as experience and things like that, and where they live, and whatever the qualifications might be. But then when you take it to the next level, are you able to, one, have this personal connection with them? So, the opportunity for those people who are qualified, send them what we call a video sales letter. And that gives them the opportunity to have this short little video from the hiring manager, the president, or whoever you want it to be, and really giving them a personalized overview of who the company is, what the position is, what the expectations are, and then take it to the next level. And if that person's still interested and they feel like they're still a good fit, giving them the opportunity to do maybe a live sales simulation, give them a couple questions to answer on video, so that and then that gets saved and then translated or sent back to the hiring manager, and then they get a really good feeling for who this person is. Somebody the other day was giving me an example. They were hiring for roofing contractor salespeople, and the guy showed up in a wife beater t-shirt and his hat backwards. And they were like, okay, this probably isn't going to be a good fit, And
Maybe not.
yeah, exactly. But having those opportunities with the technology that we have now and being able to really cut a lot of people out in the very beginning and seeing if they're going to be a good fit for your team.
That's amazing. It sounds like the process is really streamlined and really efficient, finding those appropriate people before they get to like the main hiring people. It sounds like there's a lot of really cool things that they have to go through. And it also sounds like the potential applicant, they have to be committed to going through the process. I'm sure you probably weed out a bunch of people that are like, oh, I'm not doing that, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that saves everybody time and frustration. So, and money
Exactly.
too, because it's expensive to hire now these days.
I can imagine. Like, I'm all about like saving time and money. Like, let's just keep it efficient. I'm a very I don't want to say I'm very impatient, but I can be. I'm like, can we just get to can we get to it already? Like, no more dawdling here.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly.
So, Margaret, what's your secret to onboarding sales teams that hit the ground running like right away and stay aligned with their business goals?
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And kind of going back to making sure that you're focused on them being successful, right? You want them to be successful, so they'll be successful for your company. And that's so important. So having and not just onboarding them and saying, oh, this is fill out this for HR and this is how you get your benefits. And, here's kind of an overview of what we do. Having that be really structured. And sometimes that takes a lot of time. So that's something that, I love to help people do is what does your onboarding experience look like so that you can have a successful, you've spent all this time hiring the right people. Now let's make sure that they're off on the right foot. And we usually put together kind of that first 5 day, and we can certainly, look at what that looks like beyond that. But at very least, giving them a 5 day onboarding experience. Like, who is your customer? What is, the benefits of your company? And how do you ask the right questions for your customer to make sure that you're a good fit for them? Again, not throwing this product down the customer's throat, making sure that it's a good fit and asking the right question. So that's a minimum that I would say now is a requirement to hiring and keeping a successful sales team or any kind of
Got
team.
it. Got it. Thank you, Margaret. And what would you say the biggest mistake is that companies make when trying to achieve that long-term sustainable success and growth?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a really good question. I would say a couple things. One is trying to do it too fast.
Hmm.
And
Let's
not
slow down.
exactly right. I mean, everybody wants to get the revenue in the door. I get it, and I do too. But you have to look at the long term, right? If you're not hiring the right people and putting them in the right space and giving them the right environment to be successful, then you're just going to be doing this all over again in 2 or 3 months or whatever. So slow down, make sure that you are putting a really good plan in place in the very beginning. You're writing a good job description. You're spending the time on the things that I talked about, kind of that video sales letter to the applicant. You're spending the time in those in-person interviews to really get to know somebody and understand if they're going to be a good fit. So asking the right questions, and sometimes that takes help from an outside person who's done it a lot. I deal with people who I'm talking with a new client right now, and he's head of engineering for a company and he's running the sales team. I was like, okay, how's that been going?
Fun.
And he's like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I've been doing this for 6 years and it's not going so well. I still don't have a sales team. I was like, well, why do you think that's happening? And he's like, because I am not a salesperson.
Right?
I don't know how to hire salespeople. I don't know how to get them off on the right foot. And I don't know how to give them the support moving forward. So, having somebody on your team that you can ramp up and down, that can fill those places that you've identified where it's not your strength. I'm not a good engineer, so I'm not going to go tell him I'm going to go run engineering or even do any of the engineering, but I can definitely help him with his sales and marketing team and hiring those people, getting the right people in place, and giving them support so that they can be successful. So I think understanding who you are, where your strengths are, and where your weaknesses are, and finding somebody who can come and help is a sign of success.
Yeah, what you just said, I'm cracking up because I can see the picture of this engineer type person trying to recruit salespeople. And I'm like,
Right.
it's like oil and water, right? It just doesn't mix.
Not at all. And he's the nicest guy. And, usually engineers, not typically the person that you're going to talk to at a cocktail party, but he's a really nice guy, and he's done his best, but he's finally realized that he needs some help in hiring those people that are not necessarily engineers. And you don't want engineers on your sales team. You want people who know and understand the product and can talk to other engineers, but not the salesperson.
Yeah. On that note, I imagine in your role in helping companies to develop teams and, helping them get the right people that are going to, work well together, collaborate, and help the business grow, right? You do have to take into account the different personality profiles. I don't know if you implement like DISC, for instance, or maybe like the Colby to kind of help those companies identify, that the type of salespeople or the type of people that would fit best into a particular role. Like, how much does that come into play?
Yeah, definitely. And it all depends on, because so kind of my job on the front end is to understand who the sales team is that they want to bring on, what are the expectations, all of that kind of stuff. So especially when we get into those higher level salespeople, we definitely use things like DISC and some of the others. And again, depending on the company, we have access to those and the opportunity to be able to use that. So that can really help on the front end. And then being able to, I've used them in my past all the way along the person's experience with us. So we go over it in the very beginning and saying, I always have them, let's take DISC, for example. I've taken it many times, and mine hasn't changed too much throughout the years. But the first time I did it, the person who hired me said, you know what? Give this to your husband and see what he thinks. And if this is, indicative of who you really are kind of at home. And it was funny because he said, you really are kind of this person, even though, you're not running a sales team or you're not trying to sell something. I still see a lot of these characteristics in who you are as a person, as with our friends and family and things like that. So they can be really telling, and sometimes it points out things that you want to shift a little bit in who you are. And so that's a great thing, again, to have a professional who has developed teams to know how to use a tool like that moving forward. And again, we're saving money here, right? Because you want to get the right people on board and give them the support to be successful down the road. So you're not hiring, again, and you're again supporting them so they can be the most successful for your team moving forward.
Yeah, and it really does make sense. Like, why, as a hiring manager, would you hire somebody to, let's say, for instance, be in charge of your accounting and the numbers, who is a very high DI, who wants to just go out and talk to people all day long, right? It just doesn't make sense, not only in terms of like hiring, but also understanding how to relate to that person that may not be like you.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the coachability aspect that comes in there, because I am a high DI. Probably can tell that.
Same.
Exactly. Everybody raise your hand.
Yeah.
But so that means that I need coaching on how to talk to those people like this engineer who are not they're very high SCs, right? So
Mhm.
how do you get them engaged without feeling overwhelmed or pressured, or how do you take those skills that are really good for being a salesperson and being persistent? But I think I got the best compliment ever when I left my last company. I showed it to our team the other day. That's kind of right there behind me, and it's this card, and it says persistence. And my team kind of gave me a nickname, and they called me politely persistent.
Oh,
So
politely
so
persistent. I love it.
politely persistent. So I think that comes where the coachability part comes in, right? And you have to know that on the front end. Is this person going to be coachable in your environment, with your ideal customer profile, with the people that you're going to be working with on the rest of the team too? Because if they're not a good fit. And again, we're back to the point of hiring another person again. So
Yeah, I could talk about this all day long. I find that the different disc profiles just absolutely fascinating. And it's very rare, but it does happen. Me being a very high DI, occasionally I do have to talk to somebody who is a high C, and I have
yeah.
to remember things like, okay, be sure to point them to facts and figures, links to articles and things like that, because you can't, as a DI, say something to like a C that's like, oh my God, it's the best, or you have to try this. And you can't speak in those terms, right? You have to speak in like facts and figures. And so
Yeah.
I have a hard time wrapping my head around that one sometimes.
Yeah. You know what? I should take it again, because I'm leaning more that direction now. Like, okay, you just told me that, but I don't believe you. I need you to like back it up with some proof there. So I wonder if my disc has shifted a little
Yeah, I'm like you. Mine hasn't really shifted a whole lot over the past few years. I'm like, I am who I am. I'm not changing
bit.
anytime.
Exactly. Just who I am.
Yeah. Well, Margaret, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights and expertise on building strong teams and creating sustainable business growth. I know our listeners will walk away with some valuable takeaways, but before we wrap up, where can people connect with you or learn more about what you're working on?
Yeah. Probably LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me. And it's just Margaret Cascio. So I don't have any numbers or spaces or anything. So if you want to connect there, and happy to connect. And then you can also connect with me via our high ticket teams. And that's it's mcascio at highticketteams.io. So send me an email. I'd love to chat. And whenever anybody has any questions, I have lots of things I'd like to share. And you can do a lot of this on your own, and it can save you a little bit of time. But you can also hire, or work with someone who's an expert in these spaces, and save yourself a lot of time and money and frustration.
You guys heard it from Margaret Cascio, spelled Cascio. Stop wasting time trying to figure out how to do it yourself. Stop wasting money. Hire an expert, hire a professional. Margaret Cascio. Thank you so much, Margaret. It's been such a pleasure having you today.
Oh, Jalen, thank you so much. I loved it. Lots of fun.
It was fun. Coming from one DI to another.
Exactly.
Go, girl. All right. Have a great week, Margaret.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.